Hello there, people of the internet. I normally don't get political on this channel, but the amount of comments in my comments section that end up getting political kind of leave me to make this video. So I'm making this video so I can leave this video on comments for all the times where I hear things like this in the comments section. So first things first, there's a tremendous amount of people in my comments section who talk about how Democrats are anti-gun and Republicans are pro-gun. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but Republicans are not pro-gun. Now, hear me out on this. First, I'm gonna ask you guys, do you know what a Democrat and a Republican actually are? If you ask a Democrat what being a Democrat actually means, and you ask a Republican what being a Republican actually means, not the political nonsense that's currently going on, but the actual definition of what your values are that make you either a Republican or a Democrat, what those things actually mean. And most people won't be able to tell you. And a lot of that has to do with how do I want to say this? People focusing on what is currently going on rather than what actually is going on, what they are currently subjected to rather than what things actually mean. If you ask a Republican what Republican values are, or even like the history of what Republicans have done, a lot of them will confuse the Confederate States of America as being Republicans, and in fact they were not. So that's an argument for an entirely different time. But if you're going to go argue one political party or another, then pay attention to what those political parties actually mean. As far as the Republican Party goes, I'm sure a lot of people are going to panic because I bring this guy up. Let's talk about Donald Trump. He is a very, very popular Republican as of right now. Now, I'm just going to say this out of the box, I will take Trump over Biden every single day of the week. 110%. If those are my two options, Donald Trump has my vote like unlimited amount of times. That being said, even though that is the case, Donald Trump is not pro-gun. He talks pro-gun, but the things he has done are not pro-gun. This is probably the biggest example that I can give. Donald Trump banned bump stocks with executive order. Now, regardless of your feeling towards bump stocks, personally, I don't care about them at all. I don't own one. I've never used one. Like, I literally do not care about bump stocks at all. However, that being said, he banned a firearms accessory that was completely legal for us to own through executive order, and that puts a very, very dangerous standing in the legislative process. Like, that could potentially give us some huge hardships down the road. I know that there's some court processes that are currently going through with it, but still, the fact that this was able to be done with the stroke of a pen to make a bunch of people felons is critically insane. All right, another one. We had 15 Republicans, you can go look up whoever they are, I don't have their names memorized. We had 15 Republicans vote for the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And with this Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, that changed a couple of definitions, and now the ATF is able to have some sort of legal standing ground to make a rule that reclassifies what engaged in a business is. And a lot of people are saying the ATF doesn't make rules, that's what Congress does. Well, guess what? These Republicans in Congress, they passed that law. That is a law that gives the ATF certain standing grounds because it changed legal federal definitions. So the ATF now has a standing ground whenever it comes to the definition of engaged in the business because of those 15 Republicans. So those Republicans are not pro-gun. Now, you might have some Republicans in your state that are absolutely pro-gun, and we definitely need to keep those guys on our side. Not all Republicans are anti-gun, not all Republicans are pro-gun. Same thing with Democrats. Whenever we come across people, whether or not they are Democrat or Republican, if they share our values or if they do not share our values, then we have to focus on what it is that we're going to do to either keep those people in office or get them out of office. Like, for example, look at Brandon Herrera right now. He's literally created like a little civil war going on in the Republican Party. Granted, like, mind you, we have an anti-gun Republican and a pro-gun Republican like battling it out right now against one another. They're both Republicans, and this is what causes so much controversy. People see Republican as just this one blanket party that encompasses all of the values, when it's not. You have a Republican from this state that might be dramatically different than a Republican from this state. Just because they're Republican, don't let that fool you into thinking that they have certain morals and values, because as we have seen with the voting process, those guys do not have the values that we currently align with. Just because they're of one particular party or another, they very much might not have those values. We see that, like I said, with the example of Brandon Herrera. And heck, it's a lot of different states. As a matter of fact, here in Florida, let's talk about Florida, which is the gun-shine state. Like, gun laws here are supposed to be some of the most lax in the country, according to the Floridian reputation. Well, guess what? Marco Rubio, here in Florida, look it up. He's the one who introduced red flag laws back in 2021, and he is the reason why we are dealing with this unconstitutional lack of due process where they just show up and take your firearms and deny you of your Second Amendment rights. And guess what? He's a Republican. He preaches, like, you can go read articles and things he said. He literally preaches about trying to do the best sort of gun control that he can do while not stepping on the toes or the rights of the American public. And then he goes and passes legislation that blatantly, unconstitutionally steps on the toes of the American public by essentially saying you are guilty before you are proven innocent, and you don't even get to engage in that due process until after your firearms are taken away. Look at how terrifying red flag laws are. Like, here in Florida, red flag laws are horrendously terrifying for myself and many of the other people around me, just because all it takes is one person to decide to exploit that red flag law, and they could just give us a whole bunch of hardship. The bottom line behind this video is that just because somebody is a Republican does not make them pro-gun. As a matter of fact, both parties are against you. We have communists versus billionaires, and people like you and I are caught in the crossfire as each of those different parties try to fight for more and more control. Now, some have more benefits than others, and some have better morals than others. But that being said, neither one is going to be for you. They are always going to be for themselves. The people in power are going to be for the people in power because that is how they stay in power. And if they have the opportunity to take things, meaning power, away from the civilian population, then they will do so, as we have seen with their voting processes in the past. So that's my 2 cents on the subject. I see a ton of people who go through the comments and they'll talk about Republicans and Democrats and anti-gun versus pro-gun and things like that. So I wanted to toss my hat in the ring. Like I said, I normally don't get political, but holy sweet Mary, Mother of Jesus, never mind. I'm not gonna finish that statement. There's a lot of people out there who make the firearms thing political, so I want to go ahead and toss my 2 cents out there and say, hey, the Republicans are not as Republican as you think that they are, and the Democrats, they definitely have their flaws, but there are some Democrats out there that are pro-gun and that do fight for pro-gun things. So don't just allow them to essentially brainwash you into blindly following one particular party or another just because that's what you've always followed. Back in the 80s, the mindsets of both Republicans and Democrats was very different than what we have right now. Each party is going to continue to pursue whatever agenda that they currently have, which allows them to maintain as much power as physically possible, and they will gladly step on anybody's toes in order to achieve that, including your own. Don't put blind faith in your political party. People have to learn how to stand up and be more independent for themselves and how to hold other people accountable. Just because they're a Republican does not mean that they hold the same morals and standards that you do. Especially if they're a politician. Don't trust any politicians. Honestly, Brandon Herrera is the only politician that I actually trust And that's because he is cut from the same cloth as the rest of us. He's coming from our group versus the group that the politicians have chosen to put into office. So, thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.